What I intend doing is giving you a brief overview of where we've come from, of where we are, and where we are likely to be going. It is an appropriate stage to do that kind of stocktake along the journey of recovery of the nation after its convulsions of 2007 and 2008. And I should also add, by way of personal introduction, that in what I say as an admirer of Kenya and its people. I have come to love the country. When we were working with IREC, we had the privilege of meeting literally thousands of people, listening to some 1,200 addresses across the country. I've been privileged to see more of your country than most of you will ever have seen, from the remotest corners and the smallest little communities to this throbbing metropolis that we have here in Nairobi. I know the country remarkably well for a foreigner, and I love it remarkably. I speak from inside as a brother, not as a critic from abroad. Now, since the advent of formal multi-party elections at the beginning of the 1990s, virtually every election in Kenya has been characterized by some degree of electoral violence. Electoral violence has become a common feature in Kenya. Sometimes, when it was an easy run, as in 2002, and there was an early concession of defeat by the loser, this fate was avoided. But generally, elections have been characterized, have been spoilt by a significant degree of electoral violence, and not only electoral violence. The violence has been a manifestation, an outward manifestation, but there have been much more harmful interior manifestations of something seriously amiss with the electoral process in this country. Indeed, as we discovered and reported in IREC, there has been a threnody of irregularities, of electoral offenses over the years that have become not only common, but have become accepted as the norm. Vote buying, dead men voting, blocking polling stations to deny others access to their inalienable right to vote, ballot stuffing on an Olympic standard, polling stations that unhesitatingly and unblushingly produce results of 105% turnout when you know that the voters' roll is at least 30% below its proper mark, and so anything over 70 starts becoming suspect. It's not that there were these offenses. That's not the issue. The issue is that these offenses were accepted as the norm, as acceptable. As a community leader told us in passing when we visited his particular town, apart from the usual vote buying, we had very little to worry about in this particular district. The culture of impunity which accompanied elections is the most serious feature of the history of elections in this country. I am not sure, and I will be addressing shortly, to what extent that has already been addressed in what is planned for the future. But the point to be made, and that has to be emphasized, is that the elections of 2007, which led to the bloody conflagration, were not out of the norm. They were merely an intensified manifestation of a pattern that was close to 20 years old. But ironically, that disaster of 2007 and 2008 brought significant benefits for the Kenyan people. It was a rude shock. It was a rude shock for many people that what they had thought happened in Rwanda was actually happening here in Kenya, in the model democracy, the powerhouse of the region, the exemplary go-ahead state of Kenya. It was an eye-opener to many people to realize that mob violence did not belong only in Rwanda, but could cross the border and could be seen here. And of course, the blood of the innocents that was spilt and the destruction of the homes and livelihood of the displaced persons should not be seen as having been expended in vain. Kenya did appreciate the seriousness of the situation, and Kenyans of all walks of life and of all political persuasions realized that they owe it to their deceased and uprooted countrymen to ensure that this would never happen again. That opportunity was grasped dramatically under the guidance of our host, Kofi Annan, and his team. In that spirit of sober, agonizing reappraisal of the body politic, a government of national unity was formed. I personally had my misgivings about its prospects of success. It had hiccups and it had hitches, but it worked. It worked better and better with time. And as the Prime Minister commented yesterday, it stands in stark contrast to the farrago that we see in Zimbabwe, where there's an absence of political will to resolve the differences of the past and try to build a united future. The spirit of frank self-appraisal included the appointment of the 2 commissions of inquiry, the one headed by my colleague on the local bench and the other chaired by myself. Ours was to look at the electoral situation, theirs was to look at the violent situation. The terms of reference are characteristic of the spirit in which the Kenyans looked at where they were. The terms of reference were broad, they were generous, and they instructed us to do a searching investigation. We were given the wherewithal to do that. We were given all the requisite support systems, and we were able to produce a report in September 2008, which we believe was of value to the people of Kenya. I would like to quote just one paragraph from that report as a reminder of what we ultimately said. Apart from a large number of recommended remedies, we said the following, and I quote, "In order to start trying to prevent a recurrence of the tragic aftermath of the 2007 general elections, Kenyans, from president to peasant, will have to do an agonizing stocktake of where their country stands. They will have to show their commitment to the rule of law and its equal applicability to all citizens, irrespective of economic, social, and political or any other belief. I believe that the evidence is encouraging thus far. Not overwhelmingly encouraging, but the evidence is nevertheless good. There has been a quite remarkable unity of purpose and resolve, and the GNU, the Government of National Unity, did work, which in the affairs of state is the ultimate test. Forget the theory. Does the thing work? Do the people make it work? Let me digress for one moment. I was burning to contribute to yesterday's discussion about the constitutional framework. Constitutions cannot make societies work. You can draft the best constitution in the world, it will avail you naught in itself. People make constitutions work. People must make their constitutions operate properly. The American Constitution, held up by many as a model, is a bad constitution, but the Americans made it work over 2 centuries. They took it as their discipline, they took it as their framework, and they amended only if and when they thought it was necessary. I commend to you a similar restraint with regard to constitutional amendments. Try, if at all possible, to fit within the shoe, even though it pinches. It will do you no harm. In the constitution that was drafted and negotiated and tweaked and debated, you produced a quite remarkable document. But it's only a document thus far, and although it has been submitted to the people by way of a referendum and had earned their support, it is still only a document. It has got to be infused with life by the political role players and the people of Kenya. And the first hurdle, the first major obstacle that has to be overcome is next year's elections. The Constitution was a radical and bold document, admirably so. It broke with the past. It created a whole new bicameral central government, the legislature. It created a whole devolved system of 47 new legislatures with original powers and claims to the national fisc ensured in the Constitution. It was a sea change in the body politic of Kenya, which, as I have said and which I repeat, was admirable. But it certainly made the future very, very interesting indeed. That constitution has to be made to work. The first major test will be next year's elections.